I'll just keep watching the inmates. There we go.
Yeah, I think we'll start.
Mhm.
People will keep coming in probably for a few more minutes.
Yep, we got it.
Um, yep. So welcome everybody to the Montclair community presentation of the Essex-Hudson Greenway. I am Deborah Kagan. I'm the executive director of the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition, and I'm going to be your host tonight. We also have Lauren Rushing, who's going to be helping out with chat and Q&A, and Kelly McDonald is helping us make sure that we get everybody in and making sure that our back-end technical is working. So thanks everybody for coming. As you know, you'll all be on mute to begin with, and Lauren will walk you through the housekeeping in just a minute. So we've got a really big crowd. This is very exciting. In addition to being at New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition, I have been a long-term resident of Montclair. So this is a really exciting presentation for me to be with you all tonight. And we have a really great response. So we have done some extra protocol to make sure that we can get to everybody tonight coming in. The purpose of this meeting really is to give everybody a basic information about what's happening with the Greenway, what its potential is, and what its benefits are for the region. Some of you may have seen some of this presentation before, so there's no major new developments tonight, but we will be talking about how the project will impact, could impact Montclair, and what your ideas are here for supporting it. And we also have two speakers tonight, which I will introduce in a minute. And just to start out, I want to remind everybody that this project is really in the early stages. So we have many people that submitted questions when you registered. We will try and get to as many as we can tonight. But there will be questions we won't be able to answer yet, because as I said, we're just really at the beginning of the process for this project. So I'm going to share my screen. Where did it go? There it is. Okay. Here we go. Everybody can see that, hopefully. So I want to start out with, first of all, thanking all our co-sponsors tonight. We have local co-sponsors for this event: Bike Walk Montclair, the League of Women Voters of the Montclair area, the Montclair Environmental Commission, the Montclair Center Bid, Northeast Coalition, and the Brookdale Park Conservancy. So thank you all so much for co-sponsoring the event with us tonight, and for promoting it. And we hope that we'll hear from you later. So we're going to start with, we have some guest speakers tonight. Essex County Commissioner Brendan Gill is with us tonight, as is our mayor, Mayor Sean Spiller, and Brian Stolar, if he is in yet. And Kelly, will you take a look for that for me? Who is the board chair for the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition. Then I'm going to give a little slideshow presentation of the Greenway. We'll go to some Q&A. We're going to start with questions that we got when people registered, and then we'll look at the chat. So during the presentation, you can put in questions in chat, and Lauren's going to walk you through how to raise your hand also to speak later on. Okay. So Lauren, I'm going to give it over to you to go through the housekeeping.
All right. Thank you, Deb, and good evening, everybody. So I think Kelly mentioned some of this at the beginning, but for those of you that have just joined, most people I think know how to use Zoom by now. We've been doing this for more than a year, but everybody does it a little bit differently. So I just wanted to run through how we're formatting the meeting today. So you should see our PowerPoint presentation there in front of you. At the top or on the sides, you can see us as speakers or any of the other participants in this meeting. As Kelly mentioned, if you could go back, Deb. Yeah. So Kelly mentioned that you are muted. So for this meeting, only the meeting hosts will have the ability to unmute you. but you can toggle your video on and off if you would like. I do want to remind everybody as well that this is an open public forum and that this meeting is being recorded. If you could go to the next slide, Deb. So since you can't speak, there are a few different ways that you can communicate with us. The first being using the chat box on the bottom toolbar. So you can chat either with everyone openly in the meeting, or you can chat privately with other individuals. If you'd like to chat with our hosting team, please message me directly. And then I would also like to remind you that the chat will be saved. So please keep that in mind as you are typing in there, and also especially as you are chatting privately with other people. On to the next step. Oh, next again. Okay, and then the second way you can interact with us is by using the raise your hand function. You can find that under the reactions on the bottom toolbar. You're welcome to use the other reactions that are there as well. But later on in the meeting, we will have a section where we invite people to sort of step into the spotlight and speak about the project. So if you would like to speak, I'll ask you at that time to just raise your hand so that I can identify you. And when I call upon you, Kelly will go ahead and unmute you. Just as one last thing, it would also make it easier on me if you can make sure that your name does show your true and full first and last name, so that if you would like to speak, it's easy for me to know who you are. All right, so with that, everybody knows the rules, and I will turn it back over to Deb to get into the meat of the presentation.
Great. So I'm going to start with our guest speakers tonight. First, we have our own Essex County Commissioner, Brendan Gill, who is also a long-term resident in Montclair and has been a long-term champion of this project. Brendan was here from the beginning, has been an incredible supporter and leading really the whole project for many, many years and persevering to get us to where we are now. So Brendan, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Deborah, so much for having me here tonight. To discuss and talk about what I believe is and going to be one of the most transformative projects that we have seen in our region in quite some time. So I'd like to thank you, of course, New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition, as well as your other partners in hosting this. Of course, the Open Space Institute, the September 11th National Memorial Trail Alliance, the Essex-Hudson Greenway project itself, our local sponsors that I know were acknowledged, but I do want to acknowledge them as well, the League of Women Voters, the Montclair Environmental Commission, the Brookdale Park Conservancy, the Northeast Earth Coalition, the Montclair Bid. I do see out there, and there's quite a few. I'm thrilled to see the turnout that we have tonight to talk about this project, because I remember the days that it was dark and lonely, and this was not. We did not get this type of turnout when we wanted to discuss this project. So I'm thrilled to see so many people who have joined us tonight. I do see out there, and I don't want to miss anybody, but I did see, I'm honored to be also joined by a colleague on the Board of Commissioners. I see Commissioner Siebold is with us tonight, who's been a long time also champion both of open space projects and is also a big supporter of this project on the board. I know, proud to be joined by our mayor, Mayor Spiller, and I do see also Councilwoman Schlager and Councilman Yacobelis as well, who are out there. And if I missed anyone else, please, as they say, blame it on my head, not my heart. It's really a great opportunity, to again join so many of those from our community and leaders to talk about this project. During my time in public service, I have tried to be an advocate for environmental responsibility and the preservation of open space. And growing up here in Montclair, I learned early the value of outdoors and open space and parks, and developed really a core belief that all people should and can benefit from having safe and recreational areas in close proximity within our communities. I first became involved in the Essex-Hudson Greenway project when it was then called the Iron and Ice Trail. So we've been through a couple of rebrandings. I like where we are now, because Iron and Ice didn't always hit the mark with folks when we would try to explain it. But I'm excited to say that I was first introduced to this project probably around 2009 and 2010. And very soon after, I became an Essex County, then freeholder, now commissioner, in 2011, where the idea was introduced to me about having a linear park that would serve as a shared use path for walking, hiking, riding a bicycle, running, or just relaxing. This immediately got my interest, and the advocates who were out there very early on, who were advocating for its construction, asked me to get involved, and I was more than happy to. Over the next few years, as I noted, the name of the proposed trail changed to what we now know as the Essex-Hudson Greenway. And I know we'll talk about this further, but upon its completion, this greenway will be 100 feet wide, hopefully 11-mile long open space trail, starting in Montclair and ending in Jersey City, and passing through 8 different municipalities along the way. So, when I first saw the project, like so many other advocates, I saw the limitless possibilities of what this greenway could become. So not only can this greenway serve as a continuous recreational space for residents and their families, it will also connect neighboring communities with business districts, parks, and places of employment. So not only do I come to this particular project through the lens of open space and protecting our environment, but also through the lens of what it means for economic development. So this Greenway, and I'm sure, Deborah, you're going to talk a lot about this, tonight, but it potentially provides new commuting options to thousands of North Jersey residents, by linking these communities to 3 major urban hubs. Our capital city in Essex of Newark, Jersey City, and New York City itself. It's going to provide enhanced mobility through the region without relying on traditional mass transportation or other motor vehicle options. And instead of driving through traffic to park and catch a commuter train or bus, although over the last year, not too many of us have been doing any of those things, we do anticipate that they are going to come back, and residents are going to have the option of walking or riding their bike potentially to a job or to a recreational area, or to another public transportation outlet along the Essex-Hudson Greenway. Furthermore, in addition to easing traffic and improving our overall air quality and health, some of the communities along the line that have traditionally been underserved in terms of creating open space will also benefit immensely from the presence of the Greenway. This is an extraordinarily important aspect to me of this project. Residents in some of the communities that are along this line have traditionally had less access to healthy activities and affordable transportation options. These are also communities that have suffered the most in Essex County during the coronavirus pandemic. Unfortunately, Essex County is number 1 in the state for loss of life during an infection rate during this pandemic. So, as I'm thinking as how we're leading to our recovery and how we come out of this, this is one of the projects that I will hope contribute to improving the health of our region and those communities that have been severely, severely impacted even in the past year. On a national scale, this project has garnered the attention of the East Coast Greenway Alliance, the September 11th Memorial Trail Alliance. The East Coast Greenway is a long-distance shared-use trail system linking 25 major cities along the eastern seaboard. And this will also follow the northern New Jersey corridor of the East Coast Greenway, thereby connecting two very significant trails. So when we look at the big picture, not only can we see this to be a transformative initiative, say that 3 times fast, for northern New Jersey, but I believe it will also, upon its completion, serve as a blueprint for future projects nationwide by demonstrating the positive effects that large-scale, environmentally friendly transportation projects can have on our community. There was a great op-ed just most recently written by John Metro, who's the Jersey City Finance Director. It was in New Jersey Spotlight. I asked folks, we'll make sure, I'm sure we can drop that in the chat. It's one of the many great things that are out there to find out information about this project. So really, what I'm here tonight to do is to, lend my support, continued support to this initiative. We've never been as close as we are to actually having Conrail sell this line, which is very, very critically important, and for to be able to purchase this line and to take really something that the first time that I met with other leaders in other communities and everyone, I used to, it was a very quick lesson in very the politics of, can we do something immediately and is there money for it? And although a lot of people thought that it was a great idea, it was kind of like, yeah, that sounds good, Commissioner, like, come back in 2024 or something like that when maybe we can start to think about it. Well, I'm happy to report that due to the work of so many people that are on this call tonight, so many different advocates, so many different individuals who have supported this initiative. And Deborah, I just have to say, I have probably, as in my 9 years in elected office, have received over the last 2 months a tremendous amount of individual outreach, really grassroots support for this project, which I think has been critical now to moving us so close to this finish line, where we can actually see what a 9-mile linear park, that connects so many different communities. By the way, not only just to move access to Newark and to Jersey City and maybe to New York City, but also to move that access, because we talk about this project so much in the idea of how do we move people in New Jersey, in northern New Jersey, to New York. And one of my always issues has been over the years is that we don't talk enough about how we move people around within New Jersey. Because, and this pandemic, I think, is going to put that front and center. Our entire, this is kind of a separate issue, but our entire northern New Jersey transportation system, and rightfully so, is geared towards access to New York City. Well, right now, what we're seeing is that access to our own communities is probably over the next, 5 to 7 years, going to be just as important as access to New York. So this is also an opportunity for people to come into Bloomfield, come into Belleville, and come into to Montclair, not just for people to leave Montclair to get somewhere else. So really, the benefits are tremendous. What we can do with it is limitless, and we can, I think, really make this a reality over very soon. And I'm here, as long as I have the honor to be able to serve as an elected official and be a public servant. I want to make sure that I do whatever I can to help make this particular project and this vision a reality. So Deborah, thank you again for having me tonight. Again, honored to be joined by so many elected officials and citizens and advocates, and please continue to count me in to do whatever we can to see the Essex-Hudson Greenway become a real intangible trail. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you again for all the work you've done and for helping with such support from the commissioners. Yes, all the Essex-Hudson commissioners. So I just want to, you were welcoming our council people. There are 2 more that have joined us. Councilman Cummings and Councilman Russo. So welcome. We're very glad to have you here tonight. And now we'd like to bring on our mayor, Sean Spiller, who has also been a great supporter of this project all along. I've been in many meetings with Mayor Spiller where he's spoken up in favor of this and passed resolutions from Montclair. So welcome, Mayor Spiller, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Deb. I appreciate that. And, thank you to you, certainly to, New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition and all the other partners who are on here. As Brendan noted, something like this doesn't happen without the great work of everybody coming together to make this happen. I had to smile when you were kind of starting us off and saying, hey, there's a lot of questions, but we're really at the start of this. I smiled because as Brendan was describing it, I'm like, this has been a lot of conversations for how long, but we all know that's what it takes, right? This is a big project. It's been years of, ups and downs, I will admit, from my perspective, in terms of sometimes the frustration when we'd hear from, some of the rail companies who refuse to sell and don't want nothing to do with it. And the challenges we have back and forth, but, through it all and really through the vision of so many advocates who are on here, everyone stayed true to this and stayed true to the vision of what this could be. And as you heard our Commissioner Gill described this very aptly in terms of the scope, in terms of the opportunities, in terms of really just the benefits that it brings to certainly our town, but many others as well. Thank goodness, because we are getting so close to having this realized and keep moving along. And I think that's why meetings like this and the outreach that we still get in support of this project is so important. It's sometimes that last mile is the hardest to go. So we've got to make sure that we don't take anything for granted, that we keep, vocalizing our support, doing what we can to show our support. It is all still very important, and along those lines, certainly happy to have been and continue to be a supporter for so long. But as you noted, and also want to thank you for making sure you caught who came in of my colleagues, so I don't have to miss anybody. But we've had great support as a council, as a community. I want to thank all my council members who are on here and the ones who haven't been able to jump on, because it's been uniform in terms of the support for this project and the understanding of what this brings. And I think that yes, I think as Brendan noted, so many of the benefits that it brings in terms of obvious ones, right? The ability to commute in a different way, the ability to connect different towns, transportation around and within New Jersey. As he noted, I think even just some of the, especially local partnerships that you've been, that were highlighted at the start of this show, the interconnectivity of benefit between all the different groups in town when we talk about what it means to our businesses, right? To have a hub, a start point for this in Montclair. I mean, it's just another reason why Montclair is so special, but what a benefit to our businesses when people come here as a destination to head somewhere else, or when they're coming back or coming to visit, are going to stop in our businesses, are going to eat at our restaurants, are going to walk around our town. I think all of that is not lost on anyone in terms of the value that brings to our community. And then, of course, the benefit that means for us as residents in terms of what we're able to enjoy as part of Montclair. And I think it really just fits into the great work. I mean, we've seen over, my 8 years in terms of town service, so many great partnerships with our local environmental commission. It's been exciting to work on those things, but the scope of this is really exciting because of how it connects us all in so many ways, and because of, yes, the struggle to get to where we are, but also the vision of where this is going. It's just an exciting opportunity. It's something that we all know is really going to be a start point, pardon the pun, for so many other pieces, not just for this project, but I think of what we look at when we have what we have here in town. We have lots of conversations about the use of our streets and our parks and other pieces, and the work has already begun where we're saying, okay, look, how do you connect our parks to this and create bike lanes and pedestrian friendly ways to get from here or there to really enjoy the full piece of this. And I know that our business districts will also be engaging in that, saying, okay, look, how do we become part of making sure people conveniently can walk here and get there and experience all that we have to offer as business owners and stores. So, it's really as I said, that jumping off point to really stimulate and grow a lot of different pieces, right? Not just, although it's a huge one, the ability to recreationally enjoy time with your family, friends, others. Yes, get around. So from a functional perspective, get to different places in different ways, but also stimulate our local economy and stimulate the connectivity that we see in so many places. That interplay is so important. So, I know that we are all really excited about all of that. I think that's what makes this project so exciting. I mean, and just again, the scope of it makes it so exciting how big this is. But it's another reason I think why we all again, lend our support. We'll continue to lend our support. It's, as the commissioner said, you have our full support, but you're going to keep hearing it because it is so important. And a lot of it is going to be important when we talk about dollars that need to be raised to make different components and different parts of the project happen. All of these different things still need to occur, approvals that need to happen, the pieces that generally you do run into in terms of getting anything approved and to move along. There's a lot of challenges and hurdles that come along. So it is going to take all of us working together at all levels of government and certainly the community and the public to kind of come together and continue the support. But I'm confident that we are going to get there, and we are closer than we've ever been. And can't wait for the day when we're all out there walking on this and enjoying it on a nice warm day. So exciting stuff. I'll just end where I started and where I think it's so important to note just a big thank you to everybody who's been involved in this. As we have a role, I have a role in terms of when it comes to us and we can offer support. Yeah, that's important in some ways, but we know there are people who are working at this, Deb, like yourself and others who are working at this all the time, and that's what makes this so special and makes this happen. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to all of Montclair's Town Council for passing the resolution of support this past season. It was really appreciated. Those resolutions are very important for the support for the project. So I think now we're going to show you some of the slides. There's a very large group tonight, so we were going to end at 8. I think we will extend the time if people want to stay a little longer to have questions and answers and to be able to speak. So don't worry that we're not going to end it just at the dot of 8 because we do have such a large group tonight. I'm going to share my screen and show you some of what the Essex-Hudson Greenway looks like and what we know about what's on the ground right now. Just to begin with, so this is an overview of the current rail line looking towards New York City. The team that the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition is part of includes the Open Space Institute, which is a national conservation leader all across the eastern US and Canada, and OSI, as we say, is the leader for this acquisition. So they have been brought on to really put together the whole package. And we'll talk a little bit later about what the status of that transaction is right now. And the September 11th National Memorial Trail, which is a 1,300-mile trail, I think Brendan mentioned. It's one of the large through trails that goes, it connects the memorial sites in Virginia and Pennsylvania, New York, and through New Jersey. And they have been also looking at using the corridor of the Essex-Hudson Greenway as part of the 9/11 National Memorial Trail. This is a little overview of where the trail goes. As we've mentioned, it goes through 8 towns in both counties. Depending on where you start, goes from Montclair, Glen Ridge, Bloomfield, across Belleville, Newark, Kearney, across the Meadowlands, a little piece of Secaucus where Laurel Hill Park is, and then over into Jersey City, just north of Journal Square. And here you can see some of the wonderful sort of sites that are all along. This is the Benson Street Station, sorry, in Glen Ridge, if anybody knows that one. Of course, this is the cherry blossoms. The trail does go through Branch Brook Park. This is the Tiffany Tower, if anybody knows northern Newark. And then we're into Kearney, into the marsh area, the meadowlands straight across. And here's another view of the meadowlands. So there's really a very wide variety of ecological habitats and of different types of land topography. So it's 8.6 miles between the 8 towns. We have to have a shout out in Montclair to the Friends of the Ice and Iron, as Brendan mentioned. This was an early advocacy group. And if David Wright, you're on, thank you so much for all the work you did in bringing, leading that for so many years. And it really was the early stages of advocacy where people began to see the potential for what this could become after Norfolk Southern Railroad decided it was no longer going to do commercial service. And we, of course, had the development of the new Booton line, which we now have going through Montclair. There were many advocates along the different towns. The Bloomfield Open Space Fund was another one of those. And for quite a long time, people were trying to approach the railroad to get them to sell the line in order to do a greenway. And for a very long time, as Mayor Spiller mentioned, the railroad was not interested in selling. However, through some discussions and some work that was done, we began to hear that the railroad might be interested. So the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition took this project on to really pull together and garner support along all the different towns. There were resolutions early on for many of the towns in support. And we took this on as a major campaign. In 2018, with starting to hear the knowledge that the railroad was interested in selling, we looked to somebody who could really take on this transaction. It's a very complex transaction to try to buy a railroad. And the Open Space Institute came on and really did several years of due diligence to try to come to finally an agreement to purchase a purchase and sale agreement from Norfolk Southern for a limited time. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that time frame is and why it's so important. So we now have this really once in a lifetime opportunity to keep this corridor intact before it is sold off by the railroad for other use. And we're very close, we think, to really making this greenway a reality. These are some basic facts about it. It would bring about 135 acres of new green space to within a 1.5 mile radius, over 500,000 residents. So this is 2 counties with incredible density. Having open space in this kind of dense counties is really rare and really is a terrific opportunity for us to have this continuous open space, both for recreation and for transportation. There's approximately 300,000 commuters along this corridor, and this would provide a alternate transportation for both biking and walking, as Commissioner Gill mentioned, not just between the towns, but also to the major cities, including Newark, Jersey City, and also access to New York City. So being able to commute by bike, being able to commute between towns and within towns, and have a safe space off street for both biking and walking would be an incredible asset for our region. It is about 100 feet in general width for the right of way, which is really wide for one of these projects, and will allow us to actually do quite a few different things, including the path. So one of those things is it gives us space to do environmental design that would capture runoff and mitigate flooding. So not only developing natural habitat, but providing rain gardens, providing bioswales. And as part of this deal, we have the subterranean rights. So the rights underneath the trail are also part of this. That allows us to do a couple of things, one of which is to include the possibility of storing combined stormwater overflow, which is a major problem, especially with some of the main cities, including Newark, Kearney, and Jersey City. Being able to create storage for that runoff would really help a lot of the flooding problems in those cities. It also allows us to be able to develop internet infrastructure. So being able to run, for instance, 5G underneath this all the way along the corridor, that is a real possibility because we have the subterranean rights. It was also mentioned that it links to regional trails. So the East Coast Greenway right now actually goes below where the Greenway would be. But there was a study done, and out of that study came the conclusion that the best reroute of the East Coast Greenway would actually be along the same corridor of the Essex-Hudson Greenway. And the same is true also of the 9/11 National Memorial Trail. And it intersects with many different trails, including, of course, the Morris Canal, which is a major through trail and canal project in our region. There are many benefits to greenways, and in particular, this project really overlaps a number of major issues that we face in the region. So clearly during COVID, we have seen the importance to have access to open space for exercise, for our physical health and for our mental health. And this would, as I said, provide 135 new acres of that kind of space. And as Commissioner Gill mentioned, it also provides that kind of recreation space in neighborhoods and communities that don't necessarily have easy access, particularly a number of communities of color along the corridor don't have easy access to parks. So this would provide another space, not only for exercise, but also for transportation. So people who don't have cars, and there are many people who don't have cars, also would have an alternate form of transportation to be able to commute by bike. This is an affordable mobility. It gives an alternate place for people who might find it difficult to bike on our streets, those who are older and kids. It's a safe area to do that kind of transportation and recreation. It also, as I mentioned, it's a continuous corridor. So this gives us a continuous corridor for wildlife, for natural habitats, for developing tree cover in areas where there isn't tree cover right now. And I'll show you a rendering of how that might look in the area in Newark in a minute. And by adding this alternate transportation, it would reduce car usage. So that both reduces congestion and air pollution. And right now, about 42% of all our green gas house emissions is from transportation. So any piece of this that we can provide where we're not using a car is something to help our goal of getting to reduced greenhouse gas emissions. And of course, this brings new vitality to our economic and local business districts, bringing people in, being able to have easy mobility between the towns. People are coming in are going to want to rent bikes, have lunch, get their coffee. We've seen across the country that when greenways and these trails are developed, it definitely increases the local business district development. And it also can increase housing values along the corridor as people want to be near this accessible and great green space. So let's take a look at where this goes in Montclair for a moment. It is close and will connect many parks across the whole line, including major parks, which would be Branch Brook Park and the Meadowlands. And here in Montclair, it's actually very close to a number of our major parks. You can see Glenfield Park, Nishwain, Crane, Erie, Woodman, and not too far, the Essex County Park, Brookdale. And as Mayor Spiller mentioned, the idea of how we can help in Montclair, make sure that we have easy access between these spaces is something hopefully that we'll have conversations on and work on in the coming period here in Montclair. This is also the schools in Montclair that the corridor is near. So from the high school, obviously Glenfield and Charles Bullock School are near it. And all those little green dots that you see are all schools all along it. So there's really a potential for safe routes to school working using the corridor. And the sort of small green circles are a quarter mile, and the large sort of muted green is about a mile radius. So you get a sense of sort of what's near the area. This is just to give you a sense that of how the land changes. The rail line obviously is flat, but of course the land around it is not necessarily. So sometimes it goes below grade or below the street level. Sometimes it's above it, and sometimes it's at street level. If you've ever looked down around Pine Street, when this comes in, you'll see that, or behind the hospital, the area that's in Montclair is actually below ground. So that means when we're talking about access points where it'll be easy to do access to this, we'll need to look at how to have where's the best place for access, for instance, for us here in Montclair. It's also a corridor that connects many, many different diverse communities across the different municipalities. So it's not just the environment that's very diversified, it's also the communities. This is just one view of that diversity, and that is shows languages other than English that are spoken at home. So you can see there's a vast diversity, all the different towns that we go through. Again, this is a zoom in on Montclair. So let's start over here for a minute. The pink line here is the current Booton line. That's the active, the active rail line. And you can see here at Pine Street is where the old Booton line comes in, but it is very close to the active line, right where it comes in to Pine Street. And on the left, this just gives us a sense of how close where the Essex-Hudson Greenway comes in is to our downtown. And this is really significant because because it either ends or begins, depends on your perspective. This is a gateway for the whole corridor. Montclair will be a gateway, and that's significant for bringing business, bringing people, bringing dollars into our downtown. This is a rendering, and I'm going to start by saying, once again, there are no design decisions that have been made. This project is really right now still in the phase, or we call the acquisition phase, trying to make sure that the land is purchased and the transaction agreement with Norfolk Southern and is completed, and that the counties take on ownership of this corridor. So there's a lot of design decisions that will happen after that takes place. And it's very important for our communities to be involved in that discussion. So part of what we're doing here tonight is beginning that process, and we hope to have a lot more meetings as we go forward into planning and design so that people can participate in what they think should be here, what we want, what we need, what are some of our concerns about the corridor. This is a rendering that shows the potential of the width. So on the left, you see a natural habitat and a bioswale. You've got a good 16 feet here at least 2 lanes for biking and walking, and also space for people to hang out, to gather, to have art exhibits, to do all kinds of other programming that this space will have the potential for. This is another rendering view. It's actually in the space right now in Newark. If you can see, I don't know if you can see this little tower in the back, that is the Tiffany Manor. So this area right now is all asphalt and chain link fences. It's leased out. There's trucks and cars that are being stored and all kinds of things in this space, and there is no green here. This is a vision of what it could be, including being able to plant trees that would help with heat island effect, having natural gardens, having lots of space for the community to do recreation activities, to gather, and really to have a sense of that community and space in the neighborhood. This is another version of the rendering of view, and this is over the Meadowlands. So right now it's kind of hard to get to the Meadowlands in a lot of ways. There's some beautiful scenery and potential for lots of recreation. There is some kayaking now that goes on in the Meadowlands. There's a great environmental center with some trails. This would open up this space, particularly for Newark and Jersey City, for all kinds of recreation that it's now difficult actually to use the Meadowlands. And it would allow for restoration of a lot of natural habitat in this area. So I'm going to turn this over, actually, the project status to our partner, Deanie Lee from the Open Space Institute. And Kelly, if you could bring on Deanie, who's going to walk us through the status of the project, sort of where we've come in the last year and a half, and where we're looking to go.
Okay, hi, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, terrific. Okay. So my name is Deanie Lee. In addition to being a long-term Montclair resident like Deb and many others on this call, I am the Senior Director for the Northeast Land Department for the Open Space Institute. OSI is a regional land trust that works on complicated landscape scale transactions up and down the East Coast of the United States. So since we were founded in 1974, Deb has said some of this, we've protected about 2.3 acres, 2.3 million acres, not 2.3 acres. Some of you may remember the Sterling Forest acquisition in the late 1990s, where OSI helped the state of New Jersey to buy land in New York to protect drinking water. That was a big deal that some of you may remember. And more recently, we protected the 160 acre Giralda Farm parcel in Morris County. So those are our two sort of New Jersey ones that people might recognize. So little background, in 2018, we did come to the table with Norfolk Southern to begin to hammer out the terms and conditions of the purchase and sale agreement that's in place now. It's one thing for a railroad to say we want to sell. It's another to figure out for how much and for how long and how it's going to work. And that's really, we spent 18 months hammering out an agreement with them to give the communities time to put together a package that would allow them to purchase the line and protect it permanently. So since signing that purchase and sale agreement, the Open Space Institute has completed a tremendous amount of due diligence, including survey, environmental assessment, title work, so you sort of name it, all of the things that go into making a real estate transaction work. In addition to that, Norfolk Southern has filed for and received abandonment status of the line. So this is a tremendously complicated transaction, not only on the side that Deb works on, which is 8 towns and 2 counties and 1 state or whatever. It's also a tremendously complicated transaction on the purchase side. So so we've been working on that since early 2020, and that due diligence package and that the work that we've done is largely completed now and really is in the hands, or almost largely in the hands, of the counties. And so it's really at this point, sort of up to them to decide to move forward with the transaction or not. So we really are at a pivotal moment in this project, where I think that the communities have largely spoken, and I will say, this is not my area of expertise, but I will say that the letters that Deb set up on on the Greenway website have been instrumental, I think, in helping to get attention and helping to show support for something that I think sort of was in the background during the national emergency of the pandemic. It's really been a community-wide effort to get those letters. And I know, Deb, you'll show people that slide and sort of show them how to do it at the end. And, the work that we're all doing here is been supported and for many years, and really now in the last 2 years has been supported by a lot of private philanthropy. And I want to say thank you, because there are at least two entities here that have been extremely supportive and generous to us over this time. And that's the Mazer Foundation and the Partners for Health, who is a local group. And I want to say thank you to them and say that, we would not be able to be here tonight except for them. So that's an important thing to keep in mind, that all this work, it doesn't happen magically. It's because of generous people in the community that step forward and do that. So want to say that, just put that out there. We are hoping and looking to close. We anticipate closing this transaction in 2021. And so, we continue to need those letters of support going into the counties, and we can continue to push forward with all the work we're doing, and are really grateful you're all here today. And I'm grateful to all our partners. Thank you, Deb. It's a great presentation. And I'm happy to take questions at the end if anybody wants to ask them.
Thank you, Deanie. That was great. And yes, I want to just do an extra shout out to our funders as well. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you brought up, and thank you for joining us tonight. This is the links to do support that Deanie was talking about. We have if you haven't seen it, the Essex-Hudson Greenway.org is our main site for the project. It has great drone footage, it has information, and it is really the best place to go for the latest information as things develop. I encourage you to go there. You can also leave questions and comments on the site. We have a digital letter of support. We've had over 2,200 letters that have been given to the commissioners and to the county executives. Those are letters of support thanking them for the resolutions of support that they have passed so far, and really asking and encouraging them to go the distance, to continue with this project, to complete the transaction, and a way for everybody to show their support, particularly during this period of COVID. It is difficult, I think, for our elected officials to do some of these visionary projects. Of course, the economy has been so hard hit, and hearing from constituents is really important, I think, to providing that kind of support that, yes, this is a project that we see is critical for our future. It's really a transformational project, as we said, for the region. It's a project that fits very well into the vision for Build Back Better, which both the governor and the president have talked about as we come out of COVID. And it's a project that addresses building a more equitable and sustainable New Jersey. So we hope that you will go on. We are still encouraging everybody to fill out the letters of support. We also, if you are an organization, encourage you to write to the county executives and commissioners under your letterhead. And we have a template for that. That is Lauren's email. She can be emailed directly. And Lauren, you probably should put that in the chat as well. And you can become a supporting organization. We have over 70 organizations that have signed up to support this project. They are listed on the website. There is a form there that's very easy for people to fill out, and we encourage you to go on there, fill that out, and become a supporting organization. Okay. So once again, it's the Essex-Hudson-Greenway.org/support. And we encourage you to go there tonight, if you haven't, and to sign a letter of support. This is my email. Feel free to contact me directly as well. We're not going to get to all the questions tonight. So there's a couple ways that you can keep asking them. One is to email me. One is to go on the Essex-Hudson-Greenway.org website and put in your questions there. And the other is that, and Lauren, who is our communications and community engagement manager, if you have an organization, if you have a group in town that you would like to have a more in-depth conversation with, and maybe have another presentation, we are open to doing more of these presentations. We are all about trying to bring information about this to all the community and community organizations and the neighborhoods, particularly that are close to the Greenway. So I would encourage you to contact us if we haven't contacted you already. We would like to, and we're certainly open to also participating in some of the ward meetings in Montclair. I know that the 4th Ward is closest to where this comes in, and we'd be more than happy to have a conversation, perhaps at a ward meeting. So thanks very much for this, and I'm going to stop sharing there we go. We have had a lot of questions, as I mentioned early on, which is great. I mean, this, and it's a shout out for Montclair, and I can do that because I'm from Montclair. This is the largest public meeting we've had to just talk about information about the project yet. So we've had a lot of questions. We're going to try to answer as many as we can. We'll take a few questions that came in when you all registered, and then Lauren is going to be monitoring the chat for questions. And again, if you want to speak, just go down below in the reaction button, click on a hand, and we'll know that you'd like to speak. So we're going to start out with a few questions that came in from registration, and hopefully Deanie and Commissioner Gill will be around if we need to ask them some of the answers. So Lauren, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yep. Okay, great. So we'll transition into the Q&A portion now. Just quickly first, I know that Councilman Jacobellis, he may have to drop off here shortly, and I know he wanted a chance to speak. So I think we'll bring him on first, and then we'll do the Q&A after that, and then transition into letting more people from the audience step up. So Kelly, if you could unmute Peter Jacobellis first. That would be great. And when she does that, Peter, the floor is yours.
Just give me a moment.
Yep.
There's a lot of people to scroll through. There we go.
Yeah.
Here, Peter, I'll actually also spotlight him so he can be there.
There we go.
Then I will unmute you.
It's a good problem to have that we can't find you right away, right?
Peter, you can go ahead and just go ahead and accept the unmute.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
This is awesome. I'm really excited about this gathering. This is a group of people I typically nerd out with on this stuff. So thank you for all the work, and thanks for letting me share a few thoughts. I want to, first appreciate all the work that my predecessors have done, and of course, that Commissioner Gill has done from the county level, and Commissioner Siebold as well, who's on the call. I'm really just excited about this for what it means. I live within that first quarter-mile bubble of where this will start or stop, however you look at it. And I have a really acute interest in what we are going to do with people when they arrive, thinking about this truly as a driver of tourism and visitation to Montclair, right? So thinking, really fundamentally how we must connect it onwards to other points of interest around town. So I'm really excited about the prospect of safe bike lanes to be able to connect this termination point or start point, however you look at it, to the commercial business downtown, to Bay Street as a transit hub, past points of interest like Lackawanna Plaza. And I'm really excited about being able to, and the prospect of being able to welcome people to Montclair and give people an inspiration to go out and discover all that Montclair has to offer in terms of history, points of interest, arts and culture, dining, restaurants, shopping. And I think what's different about this versus sort of general marketing that you would do for that purpose is we already do well in Montclair in terms when things are normal in terms of dining at night and events at night. This is a really good opportunity for that lunchtime market as well, for people during the day to come and shop during the day and have lunch, particularly on the weekend. So really excited about that. I think, our business districts will certainly thrive by having that connectivity. And we have to imagine that there are going to be families arriving in Montclair, right, and terminating on Pine Street, and how do we get them safely to these other places around town. So I know from firsthand experience that New York City is going to see this and is going to leverage this as an opportunity to try and get people from New Jersey to visit New York City. So I'm hoping that we in Montclair are thinking of it the same way in terms of marketing Montclair to get people to want to discover Montclair, to experience Montclair and all it has to offer, but that we're also acutely tuned into how this will impact the neighborhood around it. This is the center of Italian heritage in Montclair. So those are just, some of the things that I'm conscious about. And I'll just add on one final point. Deb, you mentioned the Build Back Better plan. Like, this is the moment, right? This is when you have the stars aligned between the federal, state, and you're hearing county and our local government, where it is time to have these shovel-ready projects ready to go, to be able to write those grant applications immediately. I believe the money is going to flow. We have a transportation secretary for the first time in history talking about complete streets. So I'm just excited for all this has to offer. And thank you for squeezing me in the beginning. I know there's a lot of people who have questions, so I will just end there. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much. And thank you for bringing this project up during your town hall the other night. That was great to hear. So thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Peter. All right, so now we'll transition into the Q&A. We have a lot going on in the chat. I appreciate you guys being very active. As Deb mentioned, there's so many people here, so we will do our best to get to everyone's questions. I do see that a lot of them are sort of falling under similar themes, so I'll do my best to consolidate those. And then we also have questions from the pre-registration, so I'll pull from them as well. So we'll do maybe 10 minutes of Q&A, and then we'll open it up to others that would like to speak. So Deb, I think if you're ready, we'll just dive right in for the sake of time. So the first question is, where does the right-of-way end in Montclair? And where will the entrance to the Greenway most likely be located? Someone in the chat box has mentioned that there's a place where the potential Greenway merges into the active railroad. So how will that be changed, and how can we make that a usable entryway?
Yes. We showed you a map where it actually starts in Montclair. There's a very small footprint in Montclair, and it does run alongside the active rail right now. So that won't be a good place to have access to start. This is something we're going to have to figure out. I know that our town planner, Janice Talley, who is with us tonight, has also been thinking about this. So I think this is something that the town will need to talk about, and that our town planners and elected officials will need to look at. Where is the safe access? It does part from the live rail pretty close to right behind where Mountainside Hospital parking lot is there. So exactly where the access will be is something that we'll need to work on here in Montclair. And I know that Janice is anxious to try to figure some of that out as well.
Great, thank you. So the second question then is, how will decisions be made for design and use of the Greenway? For example, whether it's dog friendly, what the landscaping would look like. Someone mentioned in the chat lighting and how that might have an impact on the wildlife along the route, where access points would be and how parking would work.
As I mentioned in the beginning, there have been no decisions on design yet. And we are not in a position actually to make those decisions yet. We are really focused on trying to complete the transaction and making sure that the counties take this opportunity to acquire the line before it can be, while it can still be kept intact and not sold off. If the transaction is not completed, then because of abandonment status, a railroad would be able to sell off pieces of this. So our focus has really been in this critical period of trying to make sure that we're doing everything we can, both in making sure that the counties hear that there's broad support, in making sure that all of the due diligence that Deanie talked about, including all of the engineering studies and the environmental studies, are completed. And that will then set us up to work with the counties going forward for planning and design. Being informed about what's happening, beginning to be organized together and having conversations together in our community about what we would want, what's important to our town, what are our concerns. That's what we're trying to build, those lines of communication right now. So I'm hoping that this, again, that this is just the beginning of the meetings and conversations we should be having in Montclair to try to figure out what we think is best for our town and what will work best with the corridor altogether. So as much as it would be great if we had a lot of decisions already, we're not there yet, which means that we really need to hear from everybody, and that there is time for everybody to start participating and have their voices heard.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So several people in the chat have asked something similar to, what do you see as being the most significant risks to the project, and what can Montclair residents do to help with it?
I think it would be good for Deanie to talk about this. This really has to do with the timing of the transaction. The risk that's involved is really about the purchase and sale agreement and the time period we have. So Deanie, you want to sort of address what the whole abandonment thing is and why it's so important for us to complete this year?
Okay, so I think I unmuted there. Hi.
You're good.
Yeah, so Norfolk Southern is a private company. It's a multinational corporation, and it has given us an opportunity to buy it intact. And this is our chance. If that opportunity passes us by, and we do not act within the timeframes of this particular transaction, they're going to move to sell it in whatever way they can sell it, right? So they're gonna chop it up. They're gonna sell it, to abutters or other people along the line. I mean, it will be dismantled as a linear corridor if we do not move quickly. And so I think that is really the greatest risk for this particular transaction, is that if we don't move in this moment where we've been given this time by Norfolk Southern, or not given this time, that makes it sounds like they're being generous or something when they're not, but we have arranged to have this time from Norfolk Southern, it will be dismantled as a corridor.
Thanks, Deanie.
So Deborah, if I could just, I'm seeing quite a bit in the chat about what we can do now. So I just want to reiterate again, I think the best thing that we can do right now is to continue to grow the support through the emails to all the elected officials who are on. That is the simple thing. Spread that to your network. Continue to do that. It's working. I cannot stress this enough. I know both at the county level and the other elected officials that are listed, I have never received more direct communication on any issue, over the last, other than maybe vaccinations and the opening of the Montclair Public Schools, but that's a whole different separate subject. But I have not received more communication, and I can't stress it's working. So I know folks keep asking, what can we do? What can we do? Keep getting those emails in. The elected officials pay attention to that. They respond to that, and it's working. I also see some questions around funding, county level funding, and I think you touched upon that. I think what we want to the reason that grassroots level support is so critical is that we don't want to let either the county of Essex or the county of Hudson off the hook, so to speak, in making sure that whatever the financial commitment may have to be, management arrangements, whatever those issues are, that we meet those challenges through stressing that if we don't, this thing will get sold off in pieces, and we will miss the opportunity of a generation. Like that is the main talking point that we want to continue to hit. With those who have the ability to make this a reality. So funding for this project will probably come from a couple of different, the way I view it, places. There's also the new reality of the investments that's being made both into county, municipal, and state governments, both through what's going to be spent on infrastructure, what's going to be spent through the Rescue Act, what's going to be spent potentially in the Jobs Act. So there has been highlighted is a significant amount of money that's about to enter into the government. Whether we're going to be able to use that directly for this project or not, or how that works, that's all still, I think we're all kind of still working through that. But if you had asked me a year ago when this pandemic started, did I think that the state of New Jersey, for example, was going to be receiving $6 billion in direct aid, from the federal government, or that the county of Essex was going to be receiving probably close to $150 million? And yes, it's under, the pandemic relief and that structure, but it creates a lot of opportunities, is my point, for us to look at this. So I know folks are focused on like, how are we going to pay for it? But I think we have a way and a pathway forward to get that done.
Great, thank you. That's
yeah, so and I'll just add on to say that that purchase and sale agreement goes through the end of this year. So that's why we're doing this now.
Right. And just to follow up, there are conversations going on about trying to put together a funding package, conversations at the county level, the state level, and also at the governor's level. So we're also encouraging people to email and write letters of support to your state senators and representatives, and also to the governor's office, because it is such a significant regional project. The funding will impact and the whole area. So it's important that the other elected officials know as well as the county. So, and it's great to hear that the letters that everybody's been sending in has an effect and really has had an impact on the county being able to push forward with the project. So thank you, Commissioner Gill, for recognizing that. I'm seeing a lot of questions about the bridge. So I think I'll just do a quick answer.
Go for it. Yep.
There's a whole bunch of questions about the bridge. So the corridor goes over two main rivers, goes over the Passaic and the Hackensack. And as people have been putting in the chat, the Hackensack, the swing bridge over the Hackensack River is in an open position. It's probably our largest challenge in terms of engineering. It is in a permanent open position, and it's a very old historic structure. So we will have to figure out a strategy, and there's all kinds of ideas that are being floated around for what to do. But everybody who's in the chat talking about that's going to be hard. You're right. that's going to be a big challenge to cross that river. And there's also a lot of smaller bridges, but none of them with the magnitude of trying to figure out the crossing of the Hackensack. So that is certainly one of the engineering challenges that we have been talking about, and we have as part of the engineering survey. So.
Okay. And just to take a step back and follow up to what Brendan was saying about funding, we've got a lot of people asking, what is the cost of the project?
Yes. Dean, you want to take this?
You're on mute.
Did you come off mute? I can start it if we're. Did we find you? We found you.
Okay, there we go. Hi, everybody.
I was just scrolling.
Even though I know that people can't hear me, I don't quite know what to do when that happens. So, our purchase price with Norfolk Southern is 65 million.
All right. Thank
And there
you.
you go.
Yeah. And that's what we know for now. Yep.
So bake sales, everybody, right?
Okay. And then let's see, we've got a good question from Bill Feeney with Bike Walk Montclair. Will there be efforts made to ensure that this trail will be safely accessed through county and town roads without the need to drive or park at the entrances?
Good question, Bill. Again, this is important to raise now, but it's not something we have an answer to. That will have to be considered by each town, particularly as the development goes through, where the crossings are, and also where the access points are going to be, right? So the obvious access points are at the street level crossings. That may involve new signals across them, but there's also has to be decisions about where the best access points are. Some of them may need to be constructed if they're not at street level. That's something that each town is going to have to look at as we go through planning and design phase. And ensuring that there's safe crosswalks, that there's safe signals will definitely need to be part of the process. And I know that Bike Walk Montclair will be in that discussion about pedestrian safety. So it's, we're going to have a lot more pedestrian traffic as well as bike traffic. So it will raise new issues about the safe crossings. You're absolutely right.
All right, thanks for the question, Bill. And then we've also got several people asking our favorite question, Deb, which is when will the project be completed, and will it be completed in phases?
I decided it's going to be completed by my next birthday, so we're good. It is the most asked question. We don't have an answer to that. We do know that we're pushing to complete the acquisition phase. And that has to happen before anything else happens. Once that's done, a lot of these questions about design and what will be involved in development will then start taking place, both at the county level, at the park department level, and with the stakeholders in each of the municipalities. So, what this is actually going to look like will also determine the time period. As I mentioned before, we are looking at a funding package that will help us not only purchase it, but begin to do some of the development. So, and then it's, as Commissioner Gill mentioned, it will be also a process of adding on what kind of funding is available and what the time periods for that would be from state and federal funds. So I'd love to answer it. We don't have an answer, but we are certainly closer. This is a project that's been almost 20 years in the making, and we are really close to having this be acquired, the transaction completed, and that's when we will start the design process and planning. So we're looking good, but we don't have an answer exactly how long.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And we've got one very important question from a Jenny Staley. And I think we'll do this one more question and then I'll open it up for speakers. So at this time, if you would like to speak, please go ahead and use the raise your hand feature under the reactions on your toolbar. So after this question, I can highlight you to come into the spotlight. So Jenny says that she used to work for the High Line for many years, and she's seen both the positive and the negatives of projects like this. Quite often, the development of open space has had a strong economic impact on the surrounding properties. So given that this project runs through so many communities, would this project consider an equitable development plan to provide existing resident support to preserve affordable housing, small business support, and workforce development to ensure that it does not become a gentrifier?
Yeah, this is a very important question. So thank you, Jenny, for bringing it up. This is something that we will need to be discussing with all the municipalities. It involves development and zoning in each of the towns, as well as job development, trying to focus on local jobs for people for the corridor, as well as making sure that neighborhoods, people are not being driven out of their neighborhoods. There's a lot of examples of good and bad ways this has been done on other trails. We are looking at those, and we're going to be preparing a report with suggestions to start looking at how can we do planning and advise the different towns on what kind of development can happen around the corridor so that that does not happen. And really a very important piece to make sure that people are heard is organizing and being informed about the project now. So that's part of the process that we're trying to put in place with these meetings and reaching out with community engagement. The more engaged the community is, the louder the voice, the more that we can talk about what the concerns are and together try to come up with some of the best examples from other trails to prevent sort of the downside that you're talking about that can happen around development of green space. So thank you. It is an important question, and I know this is not the answer, so it's important that we're bringing it up and that we'll continue to talk about it. So thanks for bringing up the question.
So hi, it's
Brendan, I think Brendan wants to respond to.
Oh, go ahead, dude. Please go ahead. No,
So
please
I
don't.
was just going to say, and just to add on to that, we've had some really generous support from our funders who have identified this as an issue for this project and have provided support so that we can hire an outside consulting firm to take a look at some of these issues and really come back to us with some informed information about how to proceed in an educated way. So I want to just put that out there again, that we do have it on our minds and we are investing in that. Especially in the short term, I know Deb is working really hard on some bilingual outreach. So hopefully over the next couple of months, this presentation that you're seeing here tonight, people who do not speak English will have a chance to see the same presentation.
Right, and as Dini mentioned, we're looking at examples. One of those will be, if anybody's familiar with the Atlantic Beltway, which is a huge project that's gone through a lot of the same issues. So, Brendan, did you want?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think I just want to echo those comments and to I think it was Jenny, I think who asked that question. I'm sorry, I could scroll. It already scrolled up.
It was Jenny. Yeah.
But for me, absolutely. I mean, it's a must. This is not even a question of if. I will not support this project, and that's unless this is part of the unless that's part of the equation, particularly as we're talking about the impact on the immediate community where this project starts, in the township of Montclair. So That is something that is just going to have to be a prerequisite. It's not negotiable, not going to be used, as a gentrification tool. That's not what this is about. And all the decisions that my hope is that all the decisions that are going to be made about the access point, at least in the township of Montclair, are going to be made in close conjunction with the specific community where this project starts. So I know we've talked about what it means for our downtown, and I know what we've talked about what it means, in other parts of our community, and it's one community, but that's a must.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Brendan. So next we'll go to John Sullivan with Bike and Walk Montclair. Kelly, if you could unmute John and let him have the floor. Hey, John.
Hi there. Great. Thank you so much. So mine's more of a general comment and outreach to everyone on here. It's so exciting to see this tremendous amount of people on here. I don't want to spend a lot of time reiterating all the ways in which this project is amazing and wonderful, but this literally checks every one of our boxes at Bike Walk Montclair of what we're trying to do. What I really want to say here is that there's a lot of, and I'm seeing in the chat when I talk to people, there's a lot of interest in what can I do? And we've heard some great ways of online and digital forms, but we really represent the grassroots advocacy level piece of this, and that we need everyone on board for that. So I put it in before, and I'm gonna put our information in there again, but this is on our agenda every single meeting we have. We are constantly looking for ways to campaign around this and advocate around this. And I just want to reiterate how transformative that word has been used a lot, but this truly would be because of how many different components it hits on. So when you hear Bike Walk Montclair, sometimes you say, oh, I don't even cycle that much, and maybe it's not that, but there's so many different ways this project impacts. So we're talking about gentrification, we're talking about public space, we're talking about environmental. So if those are things that you're jazzed up about, come find us, because this will be one at the street level, at the grassroots level. That is how it trickles up to the municipal leaders and the county leaders and the state leaders. We all know that all transformative change starts that way. So please reach out to us, and we need everyone that's on here to start tomorrow. That's it.
Great, thank you, John. So I believe Brian Stoller is on the line, calling in with his phone, and he also wanted to say some words. So we'll go ahead and give him the floor now. Kelly, are you able to unmute him when he's on his phone? Does that work the same?
I just asked him to unmute. Brian, you should be able to see that, and should
I'm
be.
unmuted.
Yep, there
Can
you
you hear me?
go. Yep,
Great.
we can.
All right, go
Hi,
right ahead.
everybody. First of all, I apologize for being maybe one of the few that's only on audio, but I got stuck at a emergent situation. Now I'm in my car. But I just wanted to say that, as Deb pointed out, this has been going on for some 20 years. And Cindy Steiner, who a lot of you know, our former executive director before Deb, was working on this with me back in 2014 when it was called the Ice and Iron Trail. I put that in a chat I just sent. And ever since then, Montclair Township, and of course, Brendan Gill, our freeholder president, the county executive and board of freeholders, have really been incredibly supportive and impactful. Cindy and I met with Norfolk Southern in Pittsburgh years ago, and they said, look, this is a long shot. We're willing to listen to you because, maybe you'll put the support together. And I think the fact is we have, and that's why we have a contract. And we look forward to the opportunity to bring it to a conclusion. Thank everybody for all the support. This will be transformative that we can make it happen. So, thank you, Lauren.
Great, thank you.
And just so everybody knows, Brian is the chair of New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition Board. So I was glad, Brian, that you were able to join us.
Yep, thank you for joining us. All right, we have just one other hand raised, and that is from Bill Rule. So if Kelly, you could go ahead and unmute Bill, and we'll let him speak, and then I think maybe we can wrap things up.
Bill, you have to accept the unmute.
All right. Thank you. Is that good, Kelly?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. We talked a lot about the local governments and the support by the local governments and the county is incredible and fundamental to this being successful. How much outreach have we done to our senators and our House of Representative members, particularly with the potential passage, I didn't read the news, maybe it did pass, of the $2 trillion infrastructure bill, which could fall directly into this type of project?
It's a good question, Bill. And I think the $2 trillion was just announced. The infrastructure was just announced tonight. So we're at a very momentous time for infrastructure in the country as a whole. We have been in conversations we've been involving the state legislators and some of our state leaders in conversations. We have just begun to do outreach in terms of letting them know as their constituents that we support this project. So we are starting to begin to encourage everyone to reach out and email your state senators or representatives and let them know what you think about the project. They will be part of the conversation because it is such an important regional project. And as we go forward, particularly important to recognize it for funding potential.
Yeah. So I'll jump in and just say both senators are aware of the project. I don't, Brian, you might have been there. We maybe 18 months ago met with Cory Booker's office. And we have not met directly with Donald Payne, but I do know that he is aware of the project.
I've met actually with Donald Payne's office. They're very interested in the project, and I actually have a meeting next week with them. So that's great too.
Yep.
All right, so that was all of our speakers for tonight. And I think, Deb, we could probably go ahead and wrap things up. I know there were some other questions that sort of got swooped up into the chat. So if we didn't get to your question, I'll put my email again in the chat, and you can feel free to message me directly, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that may have gotten missed after this.
So thank you, everybody. We had over 150 people at this meeting, which I think is fantastic. And even though we went a half an hour over, we still got almost 100 people on. So I think that speaks to the excitement that we have here in Montclair for the project. I want to thank everybody for coming. Thank Commissioner Gill for being with us, Mayor Spiller, and our chair, our board chair, Brian Stoller, for participating, and our council members who came and listened and participated. Thank you so much for being here. And all the advocates in Montclair who have been working on this project and supporting this project over many, many years. Your work is coming to fruition. I hope you realize how important the work that you've been doing all this time and persevering, it's really going to happen, we hope. So it really speaks to the dedication that you've all had and the vision you've had. And Montclair was really one of the first places where people started to really get excited about this project. So I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation here. Again, we are open to having continuous meetings, to providing you with more information. As the weather gets great, we might do some outdoor activities. And of course, as we move further away from COVID, we'll be able hopefully to have some in-person and maybe participate in some community outdoor events at least. So please reach out to us. I'm on the board for Bike Walk Montclair, so I really appreciate, of course, John and his comments about the importance of building the grassroots support. That's what's going to make the difference. That's what's going to get us involved and having a voice in all those questions we can't answer now about design and planning and gentrification and preventing that from being part of the project. So thank you all very much for tonight. Deanie, do you want to say a few words goodbye?
Good night, everybody. Thank you for coming.
And Commissioner Gill, are you there?
I am. Thank you again. No, thanks for everyone, and thank you for having me, as always. Deeply appreciated.
And Mayor Spiller, last words.
Yeah, no, thank you to everybody. Engaging conversation again. Love the questions. Love the ask of everybody to help and take action. So that's a great sign. And thank you, everybody. And let's keep this going.
Thank you, everybody. Have a
Have a
good
good
one.
night.
Have a
Stay
good-
safe.